Hello, this is the next in the series of the history of the Jewish people, Part 7, the 6 Steps to Jewish War, things that occurred between 66 and 70 AD. Now, we begin with the prefect Gaius Florus, who was focused on obtaining as much wealth from the cities of Judea and rooting whole populations to get bribery and to obtain money. And he was doing what he could to incite a Jewish revolt to cover his actions. And in many ways, Nero's policies gave license to war. We don't know if there was any background thing, but Nero was ruling all of Rome in order to pay for his circuses, his feasts, and his various mistresses, male mistresses. So the first 6 steps to war was first the Syrian legate Cissus Gaius visit to Jerusalem at Passover, where he promised to give aid and didn't. Civic toil that occurred in Caesarea due to a synagogue incident, a temple treasury incident, the rebel capture of the Palestinian fortress, the end of sacrifices for Rome, and the massacres that came after the Jews ended sacrifices and captured Jerusalem. So let's begin quickly. The first one was the Passover visit by Cissus Gaius. Now, Cissus, Syria's Roman legate, and Florus visit the city at Passover in 66. What happens is the crowds ask for relief for the oppression of Florus. Cissus promised relief, but does nothing. This inflames the Jews to understand if they need to get help, they must help themselves. After Cissus does nothing, the Jews begin to take other cases. The second step to war was Caesarea, when the hostilities between Jews and non-Jews broke into open violence. The Jewish community sought additional rights, while non-Jewish community saw Nero's verdict as condoning anti-Jewish behavior. This broke into full conflict when a Jewish synagogue tried to purchase land near a synagogue but are rejected. Workshops are built close to the synagogue, leaving the very little passage to enter it. And the Jewish youth try to block the building of the workshops, hoping, I guess, perhaps to buy the land. Florus is sent a bribe of 8 talents to find in their favor, and he accepts it. The Gentiles then, one morning, simulate the sacrificing of a bird in front of a synagogue, implies that the Jews are lepers. You can see Leviticus 14:4-5, and that's why the Jews had to leave Egypt. That's a racial slur that angered people. The Jewish leaders, then there became a chaos and a fight, and the Jews decided to leave the city carrying the Torah and go to Florus and Sebaste to ask. He's been bribed, he's accepted the bribe, and they're trying to get a resolution. Florus arrests the Jewish leaders and put them in irons for having removed the Torah from the city, and when reminded of the bribes, he ignores the elders. This inframes it. Even taking a bribe and not doing something is worse than not taking the bribe. The third incident is a temple incident. The Jews fell behind the payment of the tribute to Caesar. How this happens is not really clear, but Florus decides to get the talents for Caesar because Nero is very pressing all of his prefects and legates to send the money because he's spending it prolifically in Rome. Florus goes to the temple, extracts the temple from the temple. The populace demonstrates the action as a part of the man passed the plan, begging for coppers for the praetor. Florus was incensed, and he held a tribunal asking for the man to be handed over. When the man was not handed over, he had the soldiers plunder the city, catch the people, scourge and crucify it. This was the first time he punishes Jews with equestrian rank. That means they had money, they were Roman citizens, and no one had ever done that. They had not scourged before a tribunal or nailed to the cross men of equestrian back, who even if they were by Jews were invested with the Roman dignity of class. So was Florus just crucifying rebels, or does Joseph claim match? There is great weight that he would have done that based on his behaviors. The leading men and chief priests appeal to the populace to cease the hostilities. Florus pushes harder. Again, he's trying to incite war by sending two cohorts of war from Caesarea and ordering the population to give him a triumphal welcome. The population responds with hostilities, tearing down the porticos that link between the fortress of Adonaiah, which is shown in the picture, and the connection to the temple. Now, he does all of this, and he does nothing to stem or make the country safe. So the people who are obedient, he's punishing, but the gangs for Sicarii or the rebel groups flourish. The Mehaim captured Masada, and it became its headquarters. Joseph repeats that Mehaim was a sign of Judas the Galilean, that redoubtable doctor who in the old days under Quirinius upgraded the Jews for recognizing Jews as masters when they already had God. He's probably a son rather than a grandson, but given the way that the Jewish description has, that's probably it. They also captured Cyprus, the fortress in the region of Jericho. So the South Desert region was being captured. This Masada and Jericho's fortress, they killed off the Roman garrison, which angered the soldier population in Caesarea or in the Decapolis, and they had a great fortress area from which they could raid. Cyprus, you notice in the Jericho plain, is above the plain, and you can come down from the hills. This further inflamement gave no hope to the lesser priests, and finally they decided, why are we creating sacrifices on behalf of Roman state and the precepts? The normal sacrifice of 2 lambs and 1 bull instituted by August was a process whereby August recognized the Jews and for their help in establishing them in the kingdom. This is not the first time. In Persian times, Ezra and others practiced praying for their leaders. Joseph saw when they stopped praying and stopped sacrificing for sin and for errors, that it demonstrated a breaking with Rome, a sense of rebellion. And these sacrifices were really, the stopping of these sacrifices was led by Eleazar, the captain of the temple. And again, you were split. The older priests wanted Jews who had Roman citizen wanted peace. They could see peace. The younger Jews saw no benefit. They were losing value. They saw a future that was grim under Nero. So these older Jews sent embassies to Florus and Agrippa, and Florus declined to respond. He was determined to kindle the war. Agrippa was anxious the Romans should not lose the Jews or the Jews their temple and mother city, dispatched 2,000 troops. After Agrippa's troops arrive and fight with all the people, he's winning, or they're at a draw. They're in a small area in the temple, as you can see with Elise in this area. But the dissidents slip into the temple precincts carrying during the wood-carrying sacrifice. They gain control, burn the house of Ananias, the chief priest, or the uncle of the chief priest, Agrippa's palace, Bernice's, which is Agrippa's sister, and the record office. By burning the record office, they hoped that by burning the money lenders, they would win favor with the local population. At this point, Menahem comes in from Masada, captures things, and they capture more of the temple area. Agrippa's students and native populations were allowed to lead Agrippa's palace, and the Romans took refuge in the 3 Herodian towers that you see in the corner of the city. The fight began, however, in the midst of it, the Jewish forces can't stay stable. Mannheim and Eleazar are fight after Ananias, Eleazar's father, and brother Achaius were caught and killed by Mannheim, and there Eleazar attacks, chases, kills in Mannheim. The Roman troops were ordered, surrendered with a pledge of security, but they were all killed except for the commander who promised to turn Jew. This caused tremendous hostility in Jerusalem and smoldering tensions to become open aggression. In Caesarea, the Jewish population fell on the Jewish population, killing 2,000 in 1 hour's time. There was just mass anger for the Roman troops that were killed. There were brothers, there were uncles, there were sons, and the troops were recruited from Sebastian Syrian, so the reprisals were just anger over the killing at Masada, Cyprus, and Jerusalem. In the coastal towns, you saw Jews kill Gentiles, or Gentiles kill Jews. In Asan, Palas, Hippos, there was some of that. On Hippolopolis, some of the Jews, modern Jews, fell on the side of Gentiles against Jews, but the submission led to slaughter. It was massive chaos and slaughter. This accelerated into Alexandria, and 2 legions had to put down it. This is a recipe for war. At the next presentation, I will tell you how these steps led inexorably to war. Thank you for listening to this presentation.